Next up is Maurice Jones and Charles Phillips, and they're going to reflect on the changing of the game through an initiative called OneTen, whose thesis is to help advance 1 million Black Americans over the next 10 years. So let's have Maurice and Charles join the conversation.
Well, good afternoon, I think, depending on where you're tuning in from. Good morning as well. Charles, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. So I'm going to try to help direct our conversation. What I wanted to do with you to start with, you're one of the founders of OneTen. I wanted to ask you to kick us off by really telling us the story of the origins of OneTen, how you and a few others came to the conclusion that OneTen needed to be launched and work to be done. So can you take us back and tell us that story?
Sure, happy to. And first of all, I want to thank the Federal Reserve of New York for doing this. This is great to see it involved in this sort of work. Some of you probably don't know I served on the board there for 3 years, and so a lot of respect for the institution. And that big old scary building, not too scary to me. So, but nonetheless, good to see you guys doing this. So OneTen started really around the all the news stories and concern and shock after George Floyd. And what happened was there's an organization called the Business Council, which is kind of the largest 250 CEOs in the country, roughly, a professional organization. They get together all the time to share best practices and kind of normal CEO club. And it's, pretty well known throughout the country. I'm a member, several other Black CEOs were members as well. And they called and said, given what has happened and all the questions that the companies are getting, the CEOs themselves also have concerns about, okay, what is the proper response? Their employees are asking them a lot of questions. They have Black employees as well. And so one of the roles of these organizations is to get everybody together and talk about things and share best practices and come up with ideas. And people have different, areas of expertise. And so they called myself and Ken Frazier, that time was CEO of Merck, and then Ken Chenault, who was the former CEO of American Express, where I'm on the board there as well. We're all good friends for many years and members of the same organization. And they asked us to come on and speak about the moment and just have a discussion, essentially about a broad topic of race relations in America. And so after we thought about it the night before and trying to figure out what exactly would we say to add on to what was going on, because they could read the news like we could, we decided that we had to give them something constructive to do, which is the best. Is a unique moment in time that the concern over kind of race relations and this awakening in America around race discussions could be an opportunity. And so the idea we discussed was coming up, with the idea of hiring 1 million Black people over the next 10 years, and basically rough math. That's not a big number relative to the 35 million people, Black people at the time. And we thought it was doable. It's a long period of time. I had done some pre-work on that concept with a policy organization called Black Economic Alliance, but there was never any demand for actually doing it. So we thought about it, I'd read about it, and I remember the white paper, I shared that, and here's how you would do it. You'd get these talent developers into a network, and these companies, if they will commit to the demand, actually makes some sense. I think it's doable. So we got on the call the next day and started discussing the idea and suggesting it, and to see if it was something remotely acceptable to people, because we hadn't run it by anyone. And to our surprise, got a very good reaction on the call. People were looking for something to do, and these are business people that like to execute, they want to plan. And so the response was, well, develop the plan a little bit more, come back with a proposal. How much is this going to cost? We're interested in what type of people are out there we can hire. Where are they? All the 1,000 questions. And so thus began OneTen. We had started building an organization, and then we had the good fortune of finding a good CEO, Maurice, to kind of finish the job for us and kind of take this and build it into something real. But the concept of these companies said, we'll commit to hiring. We don't have enough workers anyway. The timing of this, right? We have the 11 million job openings right now. And it looks like that we're ignoring an entire pool of people that possibly could be talent relevant to some of these jobs. We'd like to know more about that. So that was kind of the beginnings of it.
And to play that out, when you look at the data, this is about ultimately removing a systemic barrier to, in this case, Black talent earning their way into the middle class in America. When you look at the data, if you look at jobs around the country now that pay $60,000 or more, on paper, 79% of them require that you have a 4-year degree just to compete. If you look at jobs that pay $40,000 or more, on paper, 71% of them require that you have a 4-year degree just to compete. And then when you look at Black talent in the workforce, ages 25 and above, 76% of us do not yet have a 4-year degree. And so this journey at its heart is about really eliminating a barrier to talent earning their way into the middle class. And oh, by the way, 66% of all talent in the workforce, period, do not yet have a 4-year degree. So that's, if you will, that's the big problem to be solved with respect to this journey that we're on right now. Charles, talk about the solutions. Talk about the way in which we need to build an ecosystem about this effort in order for it to work. Companies, talent developers, et cetera.
Yeah, well, you mentioned one of the barriers being the college degree, and I think one of the initiatives we took on was to get these companies, and we now have, I think, some like 70 companies or so, to recode some of those jobs. And do you really need a college degree for this specific role? And in some cases, the person who was leaving the job and retiring did not have a college degree, but when they go to hire the next person, they put that requirement in by default. And so recoding jobs was part of it, but there were many other barriers. There's the proximity problem. A lot of Black people live in segregated communities. They aren't around these employers. Secondly, if you didn't have that college degree, you may not have the confidence to go apply for a job at all. We talked about earlier some of the language differences and how people describe jobs. So there are a lot of different things that prevented people from even wanting to attempt to try some of these jobs. And then the heads of HR, they may be well-meaning, but they have a process and they've always done things a certain way. Recruit from the same colleges, they hit their number, they move on. There was little incentive for them to do something different without some push from the top. And so the idea was, okay, if we can get the CEOs in to provide that push, and I think we came up with enough, arguments for them to get involved. Besides being a good thing to do and needing the workers, it's good for the country. And so we sold that a lot just by saying, look, you want people to have jobs, you want people to pay taxes, you want them to have fewer entitlements, all the things that you talk about all the time. Well, if people are working, all those good things happen. So, and let's make this happen. So if we can connect them to Black people in some way, and we chose the workforce development programs, or talent developers as we call them. And the problem is there's thousands of them because it's highly localized. Few of them have scale. The average program probably does 200 or 300 a year if they're lucky. And the companies don't have time to figure that out. There's too much fragmentation and friction. I can't hire from 55 different talent developers if I'm just trying to get 300 jobs. That's somebody else has to do that. So that marketplace in between is the idea. Can you connect all these specialty training organizations? And they differ by job role, by skill set, by location, by industry, and somehow knit them into a network so it's easy for the people who want to hire to see where to go to find people. And vice versa, the people who do the training, they need to make sure that there's a job for these people once they go through the 3 months or 4 months of training or whatever it is. There needs to be a job waiting so people have confidence that if I go through this training and take this time off from wherever I was doing before, that it makes sense for me. There's a prize at the end of it. There's a history of people getting involved in these programs sometimes paying to get trained, and then there's no job and they owe money. And so that fear has to be overcome. And one way to overcome that is that we'll guarantee you a job if you get through this program because we have all these employers who are ready to hire. So matching supply with demand in a reliable, transparent way was the gist of kind of the marketplace.
So what we have done now is we have almost 70 companies who are putting jobs on the table that pay living wages and above, don't require a 4-year degree. We have over 100 talent developers, as Charles was speaking of, many of whom are the ESEs that we're talking about today, organizations that can equip and recruit and upskill talent that we need to meet these demands. Obviously, we have Black talent without 4-year degrees. And then finally, to Charles's point, we have organizations that can provide wraparound supports, childcare, transportation, coaching, mentoring. Those are some of the main ones, mental wellness. And our job is to knit these together into a high functioning team and to scale it. We have two platforms or two approaches to that. We've got a technology marketplace that allows the matching to occur all virtually. Companies can publish jobs, talent can come on and see those jobs, talent developers can publish their offerings. And then we picked 25 cities around the country where we're trying to do this the old-fashioned way, build relationships on the ground that lead to the recruitment, the preparation, and the placement of folks into living wage jobs. That's the OneTen journey. Charles, from your standpoint, if you had to pick one or two big challenges on this journey, what would you highlight for us?
Well, companies don't like to do things manually, so we need a high degree of automation for them to participate. When you have that type of scale, you can't do things in a spreadsheet anymore. And so they have these very complicated HR systems, and one component of that is something called the applicant tracking system. So when they get resumes in and people apply for jobs, it goes into the system. It ranks them. It basically apportions them by particular job roles and departments, and they can see who's there, and people can pick who they want to hire. It's kind of like their own internal marketplace. And so that's the way they're used to doing it. There are probably 5 or 6 major ones out there that they all use. They don't want to go to some separate system. So we have to integrate into those systems and make it seamless. And so as they have jobs and they upload them into their own HR system, they somehow appear on the OneTen marketplace. So it has to be a two-way communication on status. So the complexity around the technology is one area, but we have a big technology team and they've been doing a great job with building all of that out as we speak. And then there's the AI platform as well to make sure that we're recommending the right person for the right job because we want people to be successful. But even if all that works, even if we place someone, then there's the retaining the people. And that's where a lot of other best practices come in. A lot of the HR managers now have a community of practice that Maurice formed for them so they can kind of compare notes. And one of the learnings is people tend to stick around longer if they're part of a cohort and they're not the only one. And so that's been proven in many different scenarios. I think someone discussed it earlier today. So we're coming up with techniques to make people feel part of the system, not alone, and then ongoing once they have the job, some interaction as well with the cohort. And so that's, learnings to be had going forward, but the companies realize that. So it's a focus. We're not just trying to place and say we're done. We want a career out of this.
Yeah, I would add this. At the end of the day, this is a mindset shift that we are attempting to advance and hopefully perpetuate, right? This skills first approach to hiring, skills first approach to promotion. What I see is our main currency, our main challenge, and our main opportunity is, and the most important ingredient to us knitting together and scaling this is actually trust, right? No matter how good the platform is, no matter how sophisticated our technology is, the question is, do the companies trust that we can find the talent for the jobs that they're putting on the table here? Do the talent developers trust that if they do the work, the ESCs trust that if they do the work and invest in the talent and get them prepared, that the companies will actually hire them and hire them at scale? And do the talent, does that individual Black talent without 4-year degrees trust that, yes, this company wants me, understands my value. This talent developer does want to help me improve my skills. If I do all this work, there's a job at the end that allows me to pay my bills, save money, go to school further if I desire. Trust is actually the main piece or the main ingredient that we will have to continue to try to earn every day in order for us to be successful at this venture. There's been so much in the way of broken trust and perceived broken trust. There's a lot of healing that needs to occur along this journey. And so we're hoping as the OneTen enterprise to contribute to the earning of that trust every day and the building and the scaling of this journey. I know I got to turn it back over. Charles, any parting words before we go?
No, I couldn't have said it better on the trust, and we're working on that as we speak. I would note that there have been many federal programs for decades, and we spend something like $10 billion a year on this, and over 151 programs. And that's what they lack, was that trust, because they didn't have the jobs waiting on the other end, or they trained for the wrong skill set. And so that's why we're doing this privately. If we can integrate to some of those programs later, maybe that's a possibility, but you have to get the demand there, get the companies to have the jobs there. And now we got to go get the talent.
I want to thank the Federal Reserve. I want to thank David and Javier. I want to turn this back over to our teammates there and just say thank you. And last thing, 25,000 hires and promotions is what this group did in OneTen from March to December of last year. This is doable. We just got to keep building. So thanks for letting Charles and I spend this time with you.